Welcome, welcome to the stream, everybody. Hello. Hello. My name is Jeff. You know me. This is my show. And, we stream here often, frequently, and, we're just going to launch right into it. I'm a big fan of, I love to champion, independent horror. It means a lot to me. And I first met the two guests that we're about to have on the show. We want to raise awareness about their project. And I first met our two guests who are waiting in the curtains at the Nightmares Film Festival out in Columbus, Ohio. They are local staples of the horror scene out there. They have their own podcast, website, multimedia extravaganza celebrating horror. They are a power couple who really know their stuff. I mean, really, truly know their stuff. They're voracious in their consumption of horror. They watch everything that comes out. They're real easy to have a conversation with because they keep up on all this stuff. They're kind of like, I don't know, Captain Planet or Power Rangers. Or when they combine their powers, they become Maddwolf, which is a combination of their last names, Madden and Wolfington. It's perfect. Maddwolf, And Hope Madden of Maddwolf is making her first feature as a writer and director, and it's a Maddwolf production. I'm sure George is on some sort of producer tip in some way, shape, or form. And I just wanted to bring them on the show to A, talk about the project, and B, just as importantly, talk about Malignant. Because they really didn't like it, and I didn't love it per se, but I don't see what the big deal is. I was saying it's kind of a litmus test. But we're going to talk all about that, as well as the project and all things. So I'm gonna stop babbling for a moment to bring them in. I apologize if I look like a Game Boy. As I was telling my guests off the air, I've been having terrible connection problems, and I've been trying to troubleshoot these things, and I just sound like, or I look like garbage. I think I sound okay, and it's really frustrating, and I got to figure that out. So I'm sorry if I look like Tetris. I know my guests are not, because my guests are unaffected. The border with the little skulls, my little decorations you can see are unaffected. It's just moi. It is what it is. In any case, without further ado, let me bring on Maddwolf.
Hello.
Hey, long time no see.
Yeah, good to see you.
Okay, you guys look great. Do I look like a Game Boy? Do I look all pixelated and crazy?
A little fuzzy.
Okay, it is what it is. It is what it is. That's all right. Let's first talk about, before we get into anything else. So we've had conversations in the past. We met at a film festival. Yeah. I've been on your show. You've been on one of my previous shows. Tell me, I don't know what the secret origin of Maddwolf is. Tell me about the foundations of Maddwolf and correct me on how I sort of misenunciated what the operation is. Go ahead.
Actually, we've been film critics for a long time, but the Maddwolf started, weirdly enough, when we were flying home from vacation years ago, and I was fiddling around with, I just gotten my first look at iMovie, and so on the plane, I was putting together all these videos that I took on vacation into iMovie, and they had a template where you could make your videos look like a movie trailer. And I thought, oh, that'd be fun, let's try that. And then it wanted all these things like who's starring, and I said, let's call this a Maddwolf production. And that's where it started. So that's where we got the name, and then we used to write movie reviews for a newspaper, and when the newspaper was shut down, we didn't want to stop. We took it online, and we just thought, well, we'll just call it maddwolf.com, and it's taken off from there. So that's how Maddwolf was born, on an airplane.
That's amazing. There's all this talk about the Mile High Club. This gives a whole new meaning of giving birth to something up in the air. You know what I mean? I love it. I love it. And, I think I didn't know that about you guys. Like, that's really special that it's like you love doing this thing, you guys are a married couple and you clearly bond over this stuff. It's very hard. I can tell you, my wife hates horror movies. I mean, she's not, it's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing. She won't watch anything that's horror, and I won't watch anything I watch everything, but point is that it's I think it's so awesome and so unique that you guys are not only together, but that you were doing this thing professionally for a newspaper. It folds, and yet you're like, we love doing this. It makes us happier. We're very interested in it. We're going to keep it going. And you guys are consistent with your output too. You got to check out their podcast. I did an anthology episode with them. It was a lot of fun. Check out their podcast. They do it by, would you guys say tropes? Is tropes the right way to put it? Like, topics.
Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's a trope. Sometimes it's kind of a random topic. It's called the podcast Fright Club. And we just do a top 5 list around any, whatever the topic may be. And then once a month we record the podcast live at Gateway Film Center, and we show one of the films, that we talked about. So and we've been doing that for years now. We just hit our 210th episode on Monday. Thank you.
Yeah. That is a stellar feat. I mean, truly, right? I forgot it was called Fright Club, and the Gateway Film Center. That's where they have the Nightmares Film Festival as well. Yeah. It's a wonderful non-profit cinema space in Columbus, Ohio. When I was out in Columbus, I kind of thought of Columbus. If Chicago is the midpoint between LA and New York, I think of Columbus as the midpoint between Chicago and New York. It's like the mid of the mid, like that kind of thing,
I like that. I like that.
And it's a phenomenal space that you have to do what you guys do, and it's cool to incorporate that live sort of element. And what makes what I think makes your Fright Club podcast work so well is the fact that because it varies in topic, it's never the same thing. It piques curiosity of like, oh, well, I want to know what the top 5 this is, or the top 5 that, and brings people in. So
that's so true. People love lists. Yeah. They just do. I do.
Yeah.
And early on we thought we might run out of topics, but no, because we'll just be out at a random lunch and something will hit, and she will grab a napkin and start writing down the top 5 horror deaths on a toilet, and then we have a podcast.
That was a podcast. So, that was a topic we did. Sometimes they're not
amazing.
Quite that random, but it just depends where inspiration strikes.
Right.
And actually, we are so excited because they've asked us to do a Fright Club podcast live at this year's Nightmares Film Festival. So we get to do one there in the middle of everything. So we're really, really excited.
Fun stuff.
Is it a secret? Is it a secret, or can we know what it's going to be on, or is it hush hush?
Yeah, it's a secret as of yet.
Okay.
I don't even know.
I'm a little bereft, but I totally understand. Secrets can be, they say secrets are no fun, but I don't believe that's true. Secrets can be incredibly fun, especially when you're on the right side of the secret. So, all right. I mean, I guess you could tell me anyway, but I think it's quite blatantly obvious. It's like, look, you've been doing this for so long. It's like, you watch movies voraciously and critique them and write about them so often. It's like, now it's like, I want to throw my hat in the ring. Am I on the money there, Hope? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that's actually very close to what happened. I've been a writer forever. My first novel actually comes out in February, and I've had a lot of short stories, a lot of stuff published over the years, and I started writing screenplays maybe, 7-8 years ago, and they always did well for me in like the festival circuit and things like that, but we just decided, because one of the other things that we do here, we also write for a website called Columbus Underground, and we cover local film, which is one of my favorite things to do, to really support independent filmmakers. So we cover local films, we cover festivals, we cover, the venues where they show things here. But so it's really given us both the chance to really get to know all of the incredible talent here locally. And so it just kind of all came together with this particular script. And we decided, that we would give it a shot. We've made 3 shorts together up to now, sort of to prep for this, and then we have a couple of amazing producers who decided to help us make this. So we have a team. We've been working on this for over a year, just the feature itself, and developing.
Amazing. Tell me about the team. I know that Brooklyn Ewing is the DP, and I've had a couple conversations with Brooklyn, and I always thought, man, and I've said to her online as well, she's a great writer and director, don't get me wrong, but like she really, her photography is just so mind-bogglingly awesome. Like I so wanted to see her, or want to see her DP a feature, because I feel like she would just crush it in that space. So it really makes me happy. I was so proud to support this project when I saw that you had her aboard, and that you have such an interesting, unique concept. Who else is involved that I may not know about?
We do have we can't announce it yet, but we do have, we're insanely excited about the effects sort of master who is committed to helping us, so that we really want to focus almost exclusively, if we can, on practical effects and camera effects. And so just somebody who's just a master of it has committed. We're excited about that.
Very excited.
And then, yeah, we're very excited. And then Jason Tostovan and Phil Garrett, who are both filmmakers, excellent filmmakers, and producers, and really know what they're doing, veteran talents, and they are the producers who are shepherding this project forward. And I can't even tell you how much they've done for us already.
I did not know Jason was a producer on this. That makes total sense. That's awesome. And he seems to have, again, with Nightmares and stuff, he has an eye for like good taste of like what, having something at a certain standard, which I'm sure will absolutely come in handy as you try to usher your vision in, having someone like that in the court.
No question about it. Well, it's funny. I have been covering Jason Tostovan as a filmmaker for 15 years, probably. Since he really got into it early on, and as a filmmaker, he's just really magnificent. And there are very few people who are as supportive of independent film, like on Earth. Really champions of independent film and horror, genre filmmaking. And, he's just been amazingly supportive, and an incredible, really momentum builder for us.
Yeah, everybody, and the other big member of the team, John Tice,
yeah,
is a member of our team as well, editor mainly, but doing so much more than that.
He'll be the AD as well, and he's been with us forever. He's been with us
awesome.
all of the short films as well, and he's remarkable.
When you're just trying to do something that we have not done before, we're leaning on these people who have knowledge that we want to pick their brains.
Yeah.
You mentioned
right.
She's made a couple of great features, and she's very tied into the indie scene, so we're just really absorbing as much as we can from everybody.
It's that, man, again, I didn't even know that Jason was involved, having Brooklyn and the whole thing. It seems like an iron tight situation, and it sounds like the special effects are going to be something else. And so and you said you started with the short films. Now, did you know that the short films were the road to the feature, or you're like, hey, we're just dipping our toe with some shorts and having fun and not thinking about anything and just doing it? What? Tell me about that process.
I did. I definitely knew that I wanted to make a feature, and I knew that I wanted to make this feature. I knew I wanted it to be Obstacle Corpse. This was the feature script that I'm sort of the most tied to, the most in love with, and so shorts were a way, because as you said, we watch hundreds and hundreds of movies a year, and not just for pleasure. We write about them, we analyze them, we cut them apart and think about them as a whole, and love movies, love movies. And I just really felt like I needed, I guess, some practice to actually employ all of these ideas that I've been spewing all of this time. Like, can I do this? So we made 3 because we just love doing it. It's great fun, as you know. It's great fun to make one. And I've written, like I said, I've written my whole life, and writing is very solitary, and it's very satisfying to me. I like it very much. But the first time you sort of have somebody else tell you what they thought, how they saw it, and have them bring something to the same words that you wrote, it's kind of magical. You know, I'm sort of addicted to that now.
It's a great feeling, and you know, ultimately, like the idea of writing and making a film really comes down to essentially getting to a place where you can, you know, think something up and then will it into existence, which is no easy task. It's like kind of playing God a little bit, like a teeny little bit. But you know, it's so rewarding when you can execute, you know, the vision and the goal. Let me ask you this. So an idea like Obstacle Corpse, which you're going to tell me about in just a second, or tell, you know, whatever audience is listening, a quick synopsis. Does the idea start with the name and you're like, holy crap, that's what does that look like on paper? Or do you have the kernel of the idea and then work your way back out? Tell me about that.
The title is totally George. George came up with the title. No, so George runs these races, these mutter style extreme obstacle races. And I was supposed to do one with him a number of years ago, and I was in an orthotic mood at the time. So I wasn't able to participate, but I came along and just sort of witnessed and soaked it in. And part of it is I have a pathological terror of the woods, and they always have these things in the woods. So from the minute I get there, I'm hyperventilating and just imagining death everywhere. Which there, at these things with these obstacles, it's very hard not to. And so I just kept imagining it, like, how would someone die on this thing? But then also just the sort of the nature, the the nature, the things people say out there. And a lot of people come dressed in costumes. Like there was, as I said earlier today, there was one guy in a full Chewbacca outfit. And they have fire pits you have to jump over. And I thought, he's going to go right up. So it all really came together pretty easily for me, to be honest with you, the concept of it and what to do with it. And a lot of that is because I wasn't busy trying to get myself over these obstacles. I was just watching people in amazement. Now,
what is your style of writing? We were talking about this, you know, I hosted a panel at the Genre Blast Film Festival on writing, and we were talking about like the different ways of approaching writing something, whether it's a feature or whatever. Are you the type of writer where you're going to sort of like block out the treatment and then flesh out the plot from there? Or do you have like a character? Is it more like novel style writing? As you said, you're a novelist as well. So do you like think of like, do you give this character life in your head and then go wherever the character decides, like the character would do this, so that's what's going to happen? What take me through some of your process in that way?
Really, it has depended for me a lot of times on what it is I'm writing, you know, and different things. A lot of times I will follow sort of a very the structure, a screenplay structure, and then other times it's different entirely. In this case, it came together with a handful of, honestly, kills first. And I didn't even end up necessarily using all of them, but that was in my head was a handful of kills and 4 characters. So, and the characters are stolen directly out of my life. And then I just kind of, which this I do often do. I take human beings that I know and I put them in horrible situations and I see and that's how this started, really, as I just took these 4 people and I stuck them here and I thought, what are they going to do now?
And then another thing that she does is very smart. She carries a little notebook with her all the time. And so if she overhears somebody say something that might make a great piece of dialogue, or maybe I get lucky and say something, or she witnesses something and then goes back and looks at these ideas and incorporates them in somehow, which I think is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's in a lot of ways, it's kind of lazy, but it's a way to make sure that I don't have 12 characters that all sound like me. You know, they all have to have their own dialogue and their own cadence of speech, and they all have to have a sense of humor, and they all have to. So I just steal from humans that I know.
I would, I think that's I don't think you're serious when you say it as lazy. It's definitely not lazy. It's like, it's actually kind of is the wrong word. It's vigilant. It's like, it requires serious effort to constantly have your radar up and running. And I got to tell you, you're kind of blowing my mind. I have never, and I write stuff too. I have never thought to wrap my mind around any kind of narrative in that way, starting with the kills, because it makes perfect sense. It's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like what Brian Yuzna talks about. Producer director Brian Yuzna.
Yeah.
He talks about starting at the end, with like a kill or whatever, and then reverse engineering the why or the how, or how do we get there. And it's kind of like that, it seems to me a little bit. And that's a very interesting way of working. And since we talked about screenplay structure, I'm gonna segue that into a quick save the cat question. I know you both know what save the cat is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So we all know that Ripley does save the cat, but here's my big question that I love asking people. I've asked this to several guests who are familiar with this mentality, the save the cat mentality. Does Herbert West save the cat? And what does it say about his character? You love that. Oh my God, I'm so glad you like that. You're like, that is the best reaction I have ever gotten from that question, because that's how I feel.
Oh my God.
All you had to say was Herbert West.
No, that's a great question. That's the best application of Save the
It
Cat
is.
I've ever heard.
Yes!
It's the best. And, in a way, he does save the cat in his own twisted way, and it makes him a horrible man. That's what that's what we've learned about
But,
Herbert.
that's next to Schrodinger's cat. That's the best cat question I know of.
It is.
Oh man, I was sitting there watching Reanimator. I think it was when Stuart Gordon died, or maybe it was the time before that. I watched it the day he passed away. I was like, I have to this is how I'm going to mourn. But I distinctly remember, I'm like, oh my God, Herbert West saves the cat, kinda. I love discussing the motivations and machinations of Herbert West, because I find he's like my favorite kind of, before we had Bryan Cranston as Walter White, or just like any of these sort of anti-hero, ambiguous, protagonists that do really, really bad things, or protagonists that are really bad people. We had guys like Herbert West in the 80s, and I just find them to be very sort of fascinating. I've always said that I personally believe that Herbert West doesn't care at all about saving lives. I think he's like a 10-year-old boy that almost, and this is the wrong word, fetishizes the experiment of doing it, like the idea of doing this ritual over and over and over again from his own fear of death. And yeah, I don't know. I just find him fascinating.
Yeah, I agree with you. He is a fascinating character.
Yeah, he's really out there. But so what is Obstacle Corps about? Because we haven't even talked about that. Tell me what it's about.
Oh, that's right. So it's about a young woman who wants to prove to her survivalist father that she has what it takes to take care of herself. And to do that, she convinces her best friend to go with her. She goes to participate in one of these obstacle course style mudder races that a friend of her dad's has invited her on. And then once she gets there, she and her friend realize that it's a much more dangerous game than they thought they were getting into. And in fact, half of the participants there, one of the obstacles is to kill a +1. And so they find themselves, they have to survive the course as well.
I love it. Love it.
Thank you. We're excited about it, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you, I don't know, I want to ask you off air because I don't want to spoil it, but I have a feeling, just from what you just said, I have a feeling I can imagine what the twist is going to be. I feel like there's a twist in this film, and I just have, and I don't want you to confirm nor deny, but I just want to see if, I want to predict. I have a prediction already, just from what you just said.
Okay.
So So you have your crew set. You've done a couple of shorts to dip your toe into the water. You're raising awareness as well as funds with doing the crowdsource campaign. What made you? Well, let me ask you this. Tell me about the work involved with doing the crowdsource campaign. It must be a ton of work. Am I right?
It's, we've never done it before. We've participated very frequently in other people's campaigns, but we've never had one of our own before. And I think that we're lucky again that this team is as helpful in directing us as they are, because I think we would be lost.
We would definitely be lost. We've leaned on them, especially Brooklyn has come in so handy.
Jason.
And knowing what makes a successful campaign. Yeah. Do it this way, do it that way. Yeah, we've leaned on them heavily.
Yeah, and then we have, if I may say so, we have a really nice site and a great video that John, our editor, made. And so I can't even tell you how I think they do more than we do, to be honest with you. And that's made it helpful because, as you're saying, it's a lot of work. It is a lot of work.
It is, and then we were getting together all the perks. They were very helpful in deciding, what makes a good perk package or what people are going to be interested in. And then I was off. My department was getting the swag, getting the T-shirts made, and then we've got headbands, and we've got wristbands, and we've got race bibs, and all that sort of fun stuff. Right. So it is. It's a lot of work. But I think we knew that.
Yeah.
We're diving in and appreciating all the help that we're getting.
Yeah. I mean, that's indie filmmaking, right?
Yeah. You know that.
That is most certainly indie filmmaking. Indie filmmaking, I guess it's part of it is being an entrepreneur. And being an entrepreneur means, as you said, you got to go out, you got to get the T-shirts. What kind of T-shirts am I going to get? What's a good T-shirt? What kind of T-shirt do people like? Am I going to get this quality? Am I going to get that quality? What kind of colors? You do more than 2 colors, it's going to cost a lot of money. Oh, if you do black and white.
I was fighting with the guy today about the 2 colors.
Yeah. Yep. That's why you'll see a lot of bands. I sort of I have a foot in the music world to a very minor degree, and I know a lot of bands. I know a lot of independent bands, and that's something you'll see a lot of independent bands. They'll make their designs, they'll Photoshop their designs specifically to pop and to look good in black and white because it's cheaper to print. People like black shirts, so that already is going to be an extra cost. So to sort of mitigate that cost, you do 2 colors. Or you just do it in black and white. And you really got to make your design either incredibly simple yet effective so that it pops in the black and white, or however elaborate your design is, you have to make sure that, it's you need a white border and then a black border and then a white border to make the image sort of stand out against it's a whole thing.
It is.
As you know. Wow, that's so great. So do you think... Wow, that's phenomenal, guys. I really am. I'm blown away at the original uniqueness of the idea that takes from stuff that's come before, but it's a very. I haven't seen. You don't see many obstacle sort of scenarios out there. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. There are definitely some, but none are coming to mind. Let me ask you this, Hope. Because you are so steeped in all the horror films that you guys watch as Maddwolf, do you then go, okay, I'm going to avoid this, I'm going to avoid that, I'm going to avoid this, because as a viewer, I say this every friggin' episode, it's so stupid, but it's so it's the greatest thing to say. It's, at the end of the day, it's taste and ability. You have a certain kind of taste, and then there's the ability, and it's trying to bridge the 2 together to work hand in hand. So you're this is what I want to do, and this is what my taste is, and can I align my taste with my, ability? So do you avoid stuff? How does that work?
I think I especially became aware of this as people gave me feedback on the script over the many revisions, is I don't want to make something I have seen. And that's harder to do than some people might realize, right? Because we watch several hundred films a year. But I don't want to make something I've already seen. And so sometimes we would get feedback that people expected the characters to do this one thing because of this movie or that movie. And I thought, well, I just can't make it happen. Like, I can't do it. So I had to find a better way to, I think, strengthen whatever weakness they were seeing in the script that led them to say, just do this, right? Because I valued the feedback, and I recognized that they were seeing something in the film that wasn't what it should be, but I knew that I couldn't fix it the way they were asking me to.
That's really that's a fascinating process, and that I got to tell you, that sounds incredibly challenging. It's not easy to do when you set that standard for yourself. It's not easy to do, and it leads me to my next question. I'm curious to know. So, if you're watching something as a consumer, not as a creator, if you're watching something and you see some sort of subversion of the norm, but it doesn't quite land, do you still have some sort of Rachmaninoff for it? Do you still respect it because it's trying to subvert your expectation?
Yes, very definitely. I think the movie that does this the best for me is Mother. Do you remember that with Jennifer Lawrence?
Yes.
Right. Which was a train wreck of a film. But
yes, it was.
It was bold, and it did some things really right. I mean, I was on the edge of, I was so uncomfortable. That whole movie, it knows how to make you uncomfortable. And it also really, really messed a lot of things up. Like, it was such a mess. But I gave it probably more stars than it deserved on I had no idea what was going to happen at any moment in the film. And that's exciting to me. Interesting.
Yeah, I feel like that's a movie, and there are some films that are like this, and this would be a great. Here's an idea for your show if you haven't done it yet. Phil, I don't know how to phrase it as a top 5 or whatever. You'd have to figure that out. But what do you think about this? Films that can be, it's the experience of watching it the first time. It's exactly what you said. And I agree with you. I felt the same way. When you get to the end and when you see what Mother is actually about, you're sort of like, what? Okay, whatever. But when you're in it and it's your first time watching it, the journey to the ending elevates the film, even though the film doesn't turn out to be what you expected it or what you hoping it might have been. You're still like, wow, I went on the roller coaster ride, and that alone is worth a couple of stars in and of itself. Yeah. What would you call that? What is that? It's a first watch.
Well, let's see.
I don't know.
Maybe we'd call it 2 out of 3 ain't bad, where the first 2 acts are good, and the third act kind of lets you down a little bit, something like that.
That might. I will say this. I will tell you, in my own viewing life, or whatever you want to call it, as a consumer, I should say, as a consumer of movies, if a movie goes right the first 2/3 and then goes bad in the last third, I'm okay with that. I'm like, if a movie falls apart, it falls apart. Great example. Did you guys see Larry Fessenden's Depraved?
Yes.
I was really on board the first 2/3, and that last third of the film totally derailed for me. I got off the train, but I still think it's one of Larry Fessenden's stronger films. I thought it was a great, interesting, fresh take on something that's been done a million times. Yeah, Frankenstein. So
Frankenstein. I think I liked a lot about that movie, and I like the performances in it. But Frankenstein is a little too tried for me. May. I'll take May. That's a great Frankenstein movie. Lucky McKee. May.
Great Frankenstein movie.
But I don't think, other than that one, it's just a bit worn out for me.
It's interesting. I was having on another one of my podcast shows that I do on YouTube. I was talking with this guy who we're actually doing a conversation tomorrow. Tune in tomorrow night. We're discussing Quentin Tarantino. Actually, it's a Tarantino. That's what it is. It's a Tarantino. But we were discussing. He brought up the point of what would Frankenstein have looked if Mary Shelley was older when she had written it, if she was not 18 years old. Like, what would it even have been written at all? It was a very thought-provoking question, and sort of captured my imagination about what Frankenstein might be or could be if the author who wrote it, Mary Shelley, was not 18 and was perhaps at a different stage of her life after she had, experienced more. Perhaps, I mean, at that time when she wrote it, she was not a mother, although, as we know, Frankenstein is about, or whatever, parenthood, motherhood, fatherhood, that sort of thing. Maybe Frankenstein would look different if after she had perhaps had become a parent. And I find that to be a very sort of thought-provoking notion.
Yeah.
Perhaps if someone wants to make a Frankenstein movie, you have to approach it from that sort of angle. But let's talk about Malignant for a minute. Can we do that? We talked about the movie. We talked about the movie enough. Guys, the link is right here. I just, I really like these guys, Maddwolf. I think they're phenomenal people, and I really want to see them just explode with this film, burst out of the gate. I want it to be an astounding success. I have no doubt that it's going to be an astounding success with the team and the talent and the concept and the notion, and I'm so glad to have them on there. So check out the Indiegogo. Donate if you can. If not, share it around. This is my equivalent of sharing it around. Let's talk for a little bit as we wind down here. Let's talk a little bit about Malignant. We are on opposite sides of the fence. We'll start with you. You tell me why and spoilers for anybody who hasn't seen it. We are spoiling the shit out of this movie right now.
Okay.
So don't hold back, you guys. Whatever you want to say, you say it. Go ahead. You launch into it.
The first thing, it's been funny because this is, as you know, it's a hot topic right now. And maybe it's just the bubble that we're in, but I see a lot of people saying it's so polarizing, people on both sides of the fence. I'm not seeing too many people that don't like it. We don't, but I'm seeing so much love for it everywhere. I really am.
I think it kind of is our bubble. I mean,
it might be just our bubble. But I'll tell you, we were turned off in the first 5 minutes or so, and I personally think it's the acting. The acting is bad. There's no humor in it whatsoever. Besides, you got the one female detective who makes a couple of cracks about the other
right.
or other.
She kind of speaks for the audience, I think.
Who has the crush on the detective? But it to me it played it so straight laced, almost as bad as Spiral did. Spiral was such a hard boiled. You're off the case.
Have not seen it yet. Haven't seen it yet.
Okay, it's terrible.
Bad. It's really bad.
I have very low expectations.
And even though this is not that bad, to me it was like that. It played it so ultra serious, and I found the dialogue very stilted, very bad. And then when it got to, I will say, she called the twist in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, I did.
And that obviously comes from seeing so many movies.
Yeah.
I will give it, when it went all batshit at the end, there are some interesting visuals. I was so out of it by then. I was so lost because I realized she was right. And it had lost me early on, and some of the craziness. I do get it. I do totally get how people. I've been like that about movies, where you just know I'm in. I am in. It's crazy. I'm in. To me, I thought Malignant, if it would have gone a little bit more batshit from the beginning and didn't play it so straight, I might have been there. But
I think part of it though too is that neither one of us is a huge fan of Italian horror.
That's
it's not
true.
Giallo,
That's
it's Italian.
true.
But, and this is very Fulci. Although a lot of people are saying Sam Raimi, and I can see that too, except that Sam Raimi is always comedic. And I don't think this was comedic. It was Fulci to me very much. And James Wan is an incredible talent. I'm not going to suggest that he is not. And the visuals were great. But, and it may have been intentional, the wildly stilted sort of, Lifetime Film Channel story itself. That got us to the Act 3 that was so great. Like from the moment Zoe Bell appears to the end of the movie, you're just like, okay. If I could have just seen this, but there's so much of the sort of melodrama parts sucked the life out of me that I couldn't dig the sort of nutty,
Yeah, by the time it went there, I couldn't get back to being on board with the nuttiness. I'm really tempted to watch it again. I am, because I am seeing so much love for it, and I get it. I can see why people would love it. It didn't grab me at all, but I'm willing to give it another shot.
So tell us why you liked it.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, you got all of your points are valid, and again, I take what you say with weight because you guys are so well versed in genre film. Like, it's not like you guys watch, a couple of Screams, a couple of Jasons, and a couple of Freddys. Like, you guys watch everything. So, your criticism is fair and valid in that kind of way. At the end of the day, it's like what you said. If you're on board from the beginning, or if you're on board in any kind of way, if you find the right hook, then you're going to excuse everything that might derail you. You're just going to go, oh, it's all right. It's all right. I know. I know what it's trying to be. It's fine. Whatever. I'm cool with that. For me, I had picked up on the buzz train, and everybody's going, I think I had heard, no, first I heard, oh my God, Malignant, gotta check it out. Then someone shared that they had read online somewhere about how, or maybe I read it on Facebook or something about like how it does feel like, you'd imagine that if this film was made in, 2 decades earlier, by Stuart Gordon or someone, that it would be a classic. Bob Rose made that comment as well on my Facebook. You know what I mean? Like that it would be championed, but because it's got that 2021 sheen, brand spanking new film. There's CGI involved. The actors are sort of, and it's a weird kind of cast. Like the cop is. The man cop, whatever his name is, that guy, he's I feel like he's a little young. He's a little too young for that role, which is okay. Again, fine. It definitely had sort of like a Saw sequel proceduralness to it. I haven't seen Spiral, but a lot of those Saw sequels have that kind of, on the cop side of things, it's like procedural a little bit. So you definitely feel James Wan leaning heavily on it. However, the mystery and the concept, I wasn't, sometimes you watch a film and you're sort of half paying attention. You're just kind of like in it, but you're not really in it. You're sort of just like, you're like, okay, whatever. I first start, my ears really perked up at the first sort of, I guess, twist. It's not really a twist. Maybe it's more of a turn, because the twist actually comes later. The first turn is, oh, maybe it's an imaginary friend. And I'm going, and part of the problem is, another aspect is, the film is too long. It's an hour and 51 minutes.
Yeah, that is true.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
The film should have been 85 minutes.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That would have helped.
It really would have.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you didn't need, and the other thing too, and again, going back to the screenwriting thing, and this is another, probably one of the hardest things to execute with ability, but one of the things that you could be most aware of with your taste, if that makes any sense. So it's the hardest thing to execute as a filmmaker, despite how aware you might be of it with your taste. And that is show, don't tell.
Yes.
Right? That is so fucking hard. I'll tell you, as someone who has it in the front of their mind when they're trying to make something, and then somehow you end up with something that explains all this shit. And you're like, how did I get here? Because, in your writer's mind, you're going, well, I have to explain this to myself in order for it to work. And then too much of that spills onto the page, and you get carried away.
Yeah.
And
the moment where she says, I can't move, you're like, that was,
she's talking to her.
Why would she tell herself
She's talking to us just for our benefit.
Yeah, she would not have
right. And those things started to add up for me, because I wasn't in it. I wasn't in the headspace that I needed to be in. And it reminded me very much of a few months ago. There was a movie that everybody hated that I loved called, and I think you liked it too, called The Woman in the Window, because I knew I was on board with what they were trying to do from the opening where they directly homaged Hitchcock and I was on board, and everybody hated it. I loved it.
Because it seemed like the film wasn't about the story. We understood the story. We knew what the story was going in. The film was about film. It was about movies. It was about loving these B movies. And that's the thing. It's like if you weren't in the first 10 minutes, you were going to hate that movie so much. And that's what I think this is like too. That's a good comparison.
But that's such a good point, though, that you bring up about show, don't tell, because we bring that up about movies all the time. Film is a visual medium. It's a visual medium. You show over telling. And those things, the more it went on about the woman talking to herself, oh, I can't move, those just started to add up, and it just helped to keep us out of the...
Weighs you down.
Yeah. It kept us out of where we had to be to really enjoy that balls to the walls finale.
I mean, that's, and again, within that hour and 51 minutes, and again, the idea, the very simple mantra of show, don't tell is a great way to sort of reset if you're a creative. It's a great way, if you're a visual storyteller, if you're trying to make a movie, it's a great way to reset yourself when you get bogged down. Show, don't tell. It just sort of reaffirms, the idea of trying to align with the things that you love most about your taste, if your taste is into that. This film is an hour and 51 minutes long, as I said, and there is a cut of this movie within that hour and 51 minutes where it's all show and no tell. Mm-hmm. Like, imagine how even with the bad dialogue, and if there's bad dialogue, I didn't care. It didn't bother me. I was talking again with Bob, and I was talking again with this guy, Kelly, on my Facebook wall. It's camp, dude. It's pure camp. This film might have legs as a campy sort of, film. Not like The Room, per se, but people might come back to this thing for its camp value, especially in that third act between the CGI, the ridiculousness, the killer, which for those who are... The killer is a malignant tumor / twin, which is such a cool idea. That's a combination of like 5 different things. It's basket case. It's all this shit. It's Fight Club. It's all these things rolled up into one, and rooted in a that myth of that Lord Edward somebody who had the twin on the back of his head who used to whisper evil thoughts in his head. Yeah. It's like it comes from Victorian mythology, so it's all based on, and then wrapped up in giallo, with the trench coat and the black gloves and the knife trophy. Someone. Sorry, go ahead.
It also reminded me in some of the mystery detective work of The Ring. Yes, it was also set in the Pacific Northwest, and they started to do all that, all the tracking down of history and trying to put pieces together. To me, it felt a little bit like The Ring in there too. But I know a lot of people, and Hope's right, we are not big, huge Italian horror fans, but it didn't remind me as much of Italian horror as she did. Yeah. So, but I see it now. But I think you're right. I think you might be onto something about a future cult classic.
I think it already has.
I think it's on the road to that for sure.
It might just be flavor. It might just be that's the thing that we love about horror films, right? Part of the allure of watching genre stuff is it's always about what is the next thing that you can tell your friends about, the new currency to chat about. The currency is I'm up to snuff like the rest of you. Like, I've kept up on my stuff and we can talk about the thing. The water cooler sort of talk. It's very it's like one of the best parts about being in the horror community. It's not just watching the films. We watch the films alone, not actually alone. Maybe you watch with a few people. We watch the films alone, but then we come together to talk about our experience and whether we liked it or did not like it. And so it could be just sort of the buzz of the month, or it might have it indeed might have some legs. It's campy enough to have some legs. But I keep dwelling on this idea of like, cut out all the dialogue, cut out all the stuff about the tapes. We don't need to see any of that shit. Just murders are happening. There's this weird, creepy killer, and then just reveal to you can even give us that's what it's called. It's a red herring. Give us the red herring about the imaginary friend, right. and then pull the carpet out from underneath when we actually find out through maybe one videotape flashback exposition, just one, about the fact that because how else are you going to know it's a malignant tumor? Yeah, that's the only way you're going to communicate that information. And then see it pop out. And then, you talked about the jail and Zoe Bell, who's great. You know what was funny about that jail that I was laughing at is that like the jail is filled with every stereotypical.
I know.
Like it's like how like whose idea, like, okay, they decided that these particular types of women were the dregs of society that would be in a drunk tank, and they're all from like different time periods and all different walks of life, but they all zero in on her and call her a country club. But it's like, one is like an Afro queen and one is like a sort of a trucker lesbian type. I think that's Zoe Bell. Like there are all these different like motifs but they're all like united. And anybody who watches jail stuff or anything knows that how segregated it is in jail, even in maybe a drunk tank. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah. And you're right about getting together in the community and talking about it. And I'm just always glad when, like we're doing now, we can do that without demonizing the other side.
Yeah.
Like one thing we never ever do in our reviews is say, if you like this movie, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
No, not at all. People come at movies with different takes for one reason or another. And if people that love this movie, God bless you. It didn't work for us. Maybe we'll check it out again. But we love to talk about it. But as always, it's in that constructive type of conversation instead of demonizing people that disagree.
So we're going to wrap it up in just a few minutes. I want to touch on one last aspect about this movie. The idea, we talked about it being campy because of the dialogue. We talked about it being campy because of exposition or whatever. Another angle, one of the greatest angles for this film, and it rides a very fine line that some other films ride as well. First of all, you guys mentioned this too. You said there was no comedy, and that's the thing that I kept hearing over and over in my social feeds from people that were not down with it. There's no comedy, and I kept thinking in my head. I said, here's my response. One, I think there is comedy if you know where to look for it. And that's not to say that you don't know where to look for it. I'm just saying that, like, there's, like, maybe you're looking for one type of comedy when there is comedy to be found, but you're just not thinking about it in the right kind of way. And two, that this film does what Return of the Living Dead does and what Reanimator does. It rides this very, very fine line between really serious and disturbing and hilarious because of how dry it is. The humor here is unintentional, but it comes from the physicality of the fact that there's this killer that walks around backwards and breaks people's limbs, and that there's like CGI, and like they're also a ninja and they're a tumor. Like it's like, but then the movie itself takes it so seriously, which is what Return of the Living Dead and Reanimator do so well. When you look at those films, you call them comedies, but when you watch them, the films don't know that they're comedies. They don't treat themselves like comedies. And I'm not even talking about camp. Like, I'm talking about this other thing where it's like the line is so, it's like what's happening is so ridiculous that it makes you laugh, even though it's super duper treated seriously in the thing, And so I don't know. I think that is where there is humor to be found if you go in with that kind of mindset. But that was a comment I kept seeing over and over about like, it's not funny enough. Where's the humor? We want more humor. And I'm like, but like, where? So what? I don't know. I just didn't like. There's so many films that I watch that don't have humor. Maybe it's because you guys are looking at it and you're going, well, the dialogue is cheesy. The plot points are ridiculous. If there was a little comedy, it would make it more palatable. Am I kind of?
I want to ask about, I think, the definition of camp, right? For me, my favorite camp is unintentional humor, which is when a filmmaker makes a film intending for it to not be funny, and it is funny. Now, I think that is what camp is. I do like films. I love Return of the Living Dead. I love Reanimator. I think that they are explicitly comedies. They were made to be comedies. So I feel like, for me, this film, and a lot of times for me, the enjoyment of like a Fulci movie is that they're not supposed to be funny. They were made as serious films, and they are often quite funny because there are big swaths of them that are just stupid. And I can enjoy that in a movie. You know, George cannot. He does not he doesn't enjoy ironic humor. So I think that's what I thought that this one was, that Juan wasn't making a super serious film in a way that was supposed to be funny and humorous in its entertainment value. And it wound up being because it was stupid. And I know that sounds very harsh, and it sounds like I'm mocking anybody who liked it, because I'm not.
No, I don't think that at all.
So bold. It was so bold that I give it credit for that it just didn't land with me.
And maybe for me, the word comedy is not quite what I'm getting at. Maybe I would have appreciated more self-awareness. To me, it wasn't. To me, I didn't get self-awareness of what it really was, and maybe that I wasn't looking for yucks. I was looking for a little like wink, like
right.
We both know what we're doing here, right? And I didn't get that at all.
Right. You're so right about the definition of camp, and this definitely falls within that definition. It does because, as I said, you have this ultra violence happening at the end with like this ninja style, like acrobat, quality to it, and it's like, you think about it for a second, like sometimes it looks like a fake mask, sometimes it's CGI, and sometimes it's the girl, and it's all sort of like jumps around, and if you know anything, if you have an eye for this stuff, you can easily point it out. I mean, anybody could really, but it's just this idea of like this ridiculous notion of like this killer that walks around backwards, which is sort of like, it's scary. And at the beginning, like the first half of the film, they really try to hide the fact that the killer is backwards. Yeah. They try to make it seem more like an amorphous creature, which I also thought was good. So they're doing a lot of, I guess ultimately, they're doing a lot of interesting things with a concept that is based on a bunch of tried and true things and blends them all together in a way that feels fresh. But the execution and the direction and the dialogue and the running time and all the other things that we critiqued make it land flat for some. And that's why it feels like a litmus test for me, because they're like, it's not about like enlightenment. It's just about like, what you're into. Like, I'll excuse this. And then other people are like, no, I won't excuse this.
It's true.
And
I think horror is a great ground for that in particular. What people are willing to accept, because they get this other thing, I think horror. And for me, and this is a huge spoiler, the moment that made me think this movie might be dumb enough for me to like it, right? Where it's like, we're just gonna push it into the brain, and then sew the skull back on. And I'm like, I don't think that much pressure in the brain. I don't think that's a good plan.
That was absolutely. And someone else commented on my little thread and was like, when you mess with biology, it makes it hard for me to suspend my disbelief. It's funny, again, like I watched that and I didn't even blink an eye, but hearing you like talk about the mechanics of it, like they're like, yeah, we can't cut around this. Let's just push it in and close the skull.
Going, no, oh my god, it was hilarious. It was my favorite movie.
that really is hilarious, and just like the face of the thing was ridiculous looking. Although I will say, genuine moment of terror when they pop in the tape and you do see like this, what is, and again, when you think about it, and here's the thing, all right, slightly serious topic within this topic, and we're at the hour, so we're gonna wrap it up. But the notion of like what, how like films have themes, films have themes, or like what is the theme in here? And the theme is actually kind of not sad or serious per se, but like it's this idea of living with cancer, you know, which is kind of there on some level. With all the camp, with all this idea, it's like, what is the message behind what's happening? There's one message of, family is thicker than blood, you know, with the two sisters at the end talking about that, or this notion.
Determining the fate of her own body.
Yes. Oh, yeah, totally. Totally. That too. And also this idea of, of the horrors of living with malignant cancer. The idea that the cancer is literally personified as a killer monster that takes control of someone's body against the will. You could see how in another filmmaker's hands, and again, we all love James Wan. We said that. I love James Wan. You guys love James Wan. Just saying, in another filmmaker's hands, that message and that material, and maybe more show and less tell with the whole mystery and the twists and all that, you have a killer, scary, crazy, psychological horror thriller with body horror mixed in. Like, I mean, it's there, man. It's there. So
yeah. And just to show where little things that people let go. Like I was fine with the shoving the brain back in. What I wasn't fine with things like when she's crying in the room there and the TV's on and they're having this breaking news and the other woman comes in and says, why are you sad? Did you know her? The bulletin is not even over yet. You haven't even heard what the bulletin was or who died. What are you talking about? That stuff just puts me over the edge. The brain stuff, fine. Come on.
But see, isn't that fascinating?
It is. It is.
That's what's so interesting, and it really is so subjective.
Yeah.
Where where you just sort of, where you overlook that, but you'll dwell on something like that. Again, brought up super quick, the notion, someone was like, what didn't work for me in Batman Forever? When they say, what are we going to do with this kid who he's going to have to go to the boys' home? And it's Chris McDonald. It's 23-year-old Chris McDonald riding a motorcycle. He's got to go to a boys' home because he's a ward of the state, but he can ride a motorcycle. It's kind of funny, it's just like funny stuff like that. But I got to tell you, this is so much fun. I'm so glad that you guys came on. And, really, we should do some sort of crossover Maddwolf thing. Let's find a good topic or a good thing, maybe the next divisive horror thing or something. And we'll have you on the show. And this is what we're going to do. We'll try and split it up where half of it is on mine and half of it is on yours, and they can cross over from one to the other, that kind of thing, and have a conversation that way.
I like it, yeah. Because
cool.
The people always ask, how often do we disagree on movies? Not very often. So it's fun to get this engagement where we're coming at a movie from two different angles,
You need that. You need the third wheel to come in and stir up the punch bowl.
Disruptor.
Is there anything else about the campaign that we didn't touch on that you want to make sure gets said on the air, or are we pretty good here?
Well, you've been nice enough to have the link down there to the Indiegogo, which is awesome.
You've been so great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all of this, Jeff.
Yeah.
I really
my pleasure, truly my pleasure. And I don't know when I will be out at Nightmares. I keep saying every year I'm going to make it out there, and every year I don't. But I will be out there again. I will, and we will have a ripping roaring time.
Yeah.
So, listen, we'll definitely keep in touch. But again, I just want to say, and guys, make sure, I'll put links in the description under the YouTube video. Check out the Fright Club podcast. Again, these guys do the really engaging, interesting top 10 videos. And unlike me, top 5, unlike me, who can never shut the fuck up and stop talking, they understand the notion of brevity. No, what is it? Brevity is the soul of wit. Brevity is the soul of wit, right?
Yeah.
They're in and out. It's like such a digestible. It's under an hour. It's so fast you can just do a bunch of video.
You have the courage to go live without a net. See, I edit ours,
That's
so
right.
I have a secret weapon of the edit room.
That's right.
You know, I might be more like willing to edit if I like had like the time or bandwidth. And it's like, you know what's funny? I became more prolific when I just started going live because it's like it's such a different animal because you have to think about what you say. You have to think carefully about what you say. And, you know, depending on the topic, sometimes you get a really good chat going with people and everybody's talking in the chat and it's really fun. And, you know, other times you're just chatting because you feel like talking about a thing and see if it gets picked up by the YouTube algorithm. And it's a lot of fun. It really is. I love doing it.
Fun, yeah. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we have a nice way of saying goodbye here. As always, we say, make sure to, guys, even in the very least, make sure you just click on the link and just watch their video. They have a video with more information. But what we say here is we say peace and hair grease. If my button would let me, come on. What is going on here with this thing?